Ferrari called and we answered. It was an opportunity to explore the back roads of California's wine country. Twisty roads with beautiful scenery beckoned. Vineyards, natural wonders, some wild animals, a little luxury, and breaking waves. All this and more on Great Drives Wine Country Challenge. Our improbable adventure started when we were invited by Ferrari of North America to drive a new Ferrari F430 in a rally, and then take some time to explore California's wine country. It would have been wrong to say no. Our Cinderella-like experience began at the Infineon Raceway in the Sonoma Valley. While the rally vehicles were being prepped, the owners had a chance to watch Ferraris like theirs battle it out on the track. Ferrari and Shell teamed up to create a racing series that provides an outlet for Ferrari owners to compete at some of the best tracks in North America. These races answer the age-old dilemma of what to do with that supercar you just bought. There are special categories for classic Ferraris, Maseratis, and Alfa Romeos that give these owners the opportunity to rev up their historic racers. There are other vehicles for those who can't afford a Ferrari, new or old. While the racing is only for amateurs, a look at the garages along the pits and at the car trailers makes one suspect that these gentlemen racers are a pretty well-heeled and competitive bunch. There's no prize money, but you can win a shiny trophy and the bragging rights that go with it. After being pumped up by the action on the track, we were ready to get behind the wheel of our bright coach for the rally. But first, a briefing. Event director Nigel Evans explained the process to a room full of expectant drivers. He handed out the route book and assured everyone that this rather cryptic guide would become clear once we were underway. We headed off to the hotel to get ready for the next day's event. The Meadowood Resort in St. Helena hosted the rally, but no one was too interested in its well-manicured croquet lawns. We were all here to drive. An inflatable Ferrari goalpost was the starting point. After last-minute instructions from the officials, the cars were sent off at timed intervals. We could tell that our fellow drivers were taking this pretty seriously. I mean, synchronized watches? We wondered why Ferrari owners come back year after year to drive this rally.
Just for the fun. You buy a Ferrari, I would think you don't buy a Ferrari to park in your garage. You buy a Ferrari to drive it and you have fun with it. You really get to enjoy what makes a Ferrari a Ferrari.
Finally, it was our turn to test our mettle with the metal and the map. This is described as a classic time-distanced event. Competitors are judged on their ability to follow the route and on their elapsed finish time. Drivers are encouraged to stay within the legal speed limit. If you finish too early, it's clear you were speeding, and points are deducted. It's a constant struggle. The scenery is telling you to slow down and look, while the car's 12-cylinder engine is performing its Drive Me Fast siren song. Recognizing the often overwhelming desire for participants to see what their cars can do, the organizers set up several autocross courses along the way.
That's the fun of driving a Ferrari, to go through turns and very twisty and sharp corners where you can really use the physics of a fast race car.
The whole experience was quite seductive. We forgot about trying to compete and just started to enjoy the drive. Discovering small towns hidden away in the hills like Nicasio was like taking a journey back in time. We were wrapping up our rally day. We hadn't done too badly, but we could use a little more practice navigating if we ever wanted to try this again. The next day was our exploration day. Since we weren't under any time pressure, we started by taking advantage of the technical specialists Ferrari has on hand for the rally drives. They're here to handle any mechanical mishaps. They bring along portable electronic diagnostic tools, spare parts, including spare tires, and even a spare vehicle to make sure the participants can stay on the road.
Right now I'm shifting through all of the gears through a self-learn process to ensure that every gear is engaged in the proper location.
After tuning our F430 to the max, he took us for a spin to give us some driving pointers.
As you can see, I'm not really lifting on my pedal. I let the car do all the work for me.
It was great seeing how you're really supposed to drive one of these machines. After our tutorial, we hit the road. We were going on a journey of discovery across the Napa Valley and on to the coast. We went right out of the hotel and hit the old stagecoach route, the Silverado Trail, heading north. After a few miles, it turns into Route 29 and starts to climb into the Mayacamas Mountains. It's a great place to turn off and catch a view of the valley. Continuing a few miles up the road takes you to Robert Louis Stevenson State Park, an area of pine forest and rugged terrain. It's named after the author of Treasure Island and Kidnapped, who spent his honeymoon here in 1880. The couple's honeymoon mining cabin is long gone, but it's a great place for hiking. For the real enthusiasts, there's a 5-mile trail to the top of the area's tallest peak, the 4,000-foot-high Mount St. Helena. We're told the views are spectacular. But if that seems like too daunting a task, there's another way to secure commanding views. A balloon ride in nearby Calistoga. The Calistoga Balloon Company takes flight every morning around 7 a.m. while the winds are still calm. The balloon rides the gentle air currents and soars over the scenic valley. The hour-long ride literally gives you an overview of the sites you may want to explore further when you touch down. The journey concentrates on the twisty and rural, quiet northern part of the Napa Valley. Miles of glistening vineyards and beautiful wineries set into the hillsides appear. Calistoga's Old Faithful Geyser puts on a show and tells us that, like Wyoming's Yellowstone, this area is a geothermal hotspot, a reminder of its volcanic past. It's what put Calistoga on the map. This area, along Route 29, has been promoted as a spa resort since the 1860s. Even before then, the Native Americans called its hot springs agua calientes and often used them for their curative powers. Today, several resorts still tap into the abundance of mineral in mud springs. The volcanic ash and mud is used in some spas as part of their luxurious treatments. Hot stone massages and traditional deep massages help remove the stress from anyone's life. To find out more about the charms of Calistoga, we took a walking tour with a local historian, Kent Domagala. We noticed there were no chains or franchise stores here like Starbucks. A conscious decision on the part of the people of Calistoga, according to Kent. It seems that this quaint town likes having one foot firmly planted in the past. James Flamson told us that his collection of antique typewriters really grew after he put one in his office window.
I had one in the window. Somebody said, "Hey, that looks neat. I have an old typewriter. Would you like it?" And they've just kind of accumulated. I've got a public storage room full of them.
So the moral is, watch what you put in your window?
You might get more. You might get more than you ask for, yeah.
Calistoga is steeped in history. Its main shopping district, along Lincoln Avenue, makes use of the refurbished Pacific Railroad Depot. Shops and restaurants now occupy the once busy train station and former rail cars. To learn more about the history of the area, we visited the Sharpsteen Museum. The museum was a gift to the town from Ben Sharpsteen, a longtime resident and one of Walt Disney's original animators. He helped bring Oscar Gold to Disney and delighted generations with his work on such films as Dumbo and Fantasia. He loved the Sonoma area, and it became the subject of a number of paintings he created that humorously depicted life in Calistoga. He used his talent on the exhibits. Many blend artistic renderings with period objects. This gives visitors a sense of what life was like when Calistoga was a hub for the railroads and stagecoach lines. It was a hard life, bereft of the modern conveniences we take for granted today. A stagecoach ride to a nearby mountain town was considered so dangerous because of bandits in the narrow road that the drivers charged an enormous sum.
He would do it full bore, with dogs running underneath barking and him yelling and screaming and cracking the whip and literally terrifying the passengers. And this was a period of time when $1 was worth $1, and he charged $10 for the ride, which was an almost impossible price at the time.
Going slow would make the stagecoach a target for bandits.
Buck English was our last big-time stage robber in the Calistoga area, but also the ride up the mountain, because the stage had to go slow, was prime for anybody who was really interested in robbing the stage.
As the resorts developed, the town became more genteel, and the robbers faded away into legend. Founder Samuel Brannan isn't forgotten. His name adorns one of the many restaurants that have sprung up in the town he believed would become famous for its medicinal springs and fine scenery. We easily could have spent several days in Calistoga, but we had to push on. There was more to see along Route 29. Our red supercar attracted looks wherever we went. A group of Harley riders had to stop for a close-up look when we pulled into the petrified forest. They seemed to be more interested in the new car than the collection of 3-million-year-old petrified trees. We left them to take pictures with the car and headed into the forest. The forest was studied by famed horticulturalist Luther Burbank, who lived nearby in Santa Rosa. He wrote that over 3 million years ago, a volcano near today's Mount St. Helena, just 7 miles away, wiped out the forest. What looks like rocks today is hardened volcanic ash, as is the path through the forest. According to Burbank, when the volcano erupted, it set off a tremendous earthquake so violent that it hurled down the giant redwood, spewing fire, ash, and molten lava that coursed down the valley. Rainwater mixed with the silicates in the ash and seeped into the decomposing felled trees. This mixture replaced each wood cell, and when it crystallized, the entire tree turned to stone. Many of these trees were already over 2,000 years old when the volcano buried them 3 million years ago. The largest is 8 feet in diameter. Just how tall it was is hard to determine until more excavation is done. But today, redwoods can reach over 350 feet. These stone giants could have been at least that tall. Back on the road, we were headed for adventure, an up-close encounter with African wildlife. Drew Ferris would be our guide at the Safari West African Wildlife Preserve. Founded in 1972 as a wildlife preserve on 400 acres of rolling hills, the adventure attracts over 60,000 visitors a year. We opted for a tour in a classic Dodge Power Wagon, the perfect vehicle for a trek into the backcountry. But there are also hikes, guided tours, and even overnight stays in safari tent cabins.
We have different sections. We have a 12-acre section, a 100-acre section, a 100-acre section, a 150-acre section. So in other words, we have our animals commingling and herds with other herds, things like this, which makes a very interesting experience when we drive you out into the middle of many different herds of animals.
The wine country weather is ideal, and the native grass and trees create an environment much like the animals' African homes. Drew and the safari founders, Nancy and Peter Lang, also live here.
Welcome to our home. Our pets are a little different than everybody else's. Certainly a little taller.
The herds of giraffes were tall and nosy. They wanted to know who these strangers were in their home. Many of the animals were born here.
The giraffe that's in my right hand was born 3 years ago in August, this coming August. And the one that's in the middle was 2 years ago this month. So we've had a number of babies. Where do you find a vet that knows what to do with a giraffe? Well, we are very fortunate to have a staff veterinarian here, and he is a retired zoo vet.
Word must have spread about our supply of tasty branches. We were swarmed by more giraffes as we drove through the park. They weren't shy or dainty eaters.
Oops, it disappeared.
This is something you'll never experience in a zoo.
You got to come up here and hang out with me to do this, guys.
Nubian ibex, kudus, Cape buffalo, rhinos, and more can be found on a trek through Safari West. We could understand the allure of booking an overnight stay in one of the tent cabins or joining one of the naturalists for a hike into the backcountry to see where the wild things roam. Before we left, Drew wanted to check out our wild horses. He didn't mind that we couldn't feed the Ferrari some tree branches instead of gas.
I gotta have one.
We needed ours to continue our trip across Route 29. People have been making wine in the Calistoga area since the 1860s. It's home to a wide range of wineries, from small hand specialty bottlers to huge internationally famous brands. No visit is complete without a trip to one of the wineries. Korbel, the maker of American champagne, is one of the oldest, and it's right on Route 29. We couldn't resist. The company was started in the 1880s by the Korbel brothers, who were originally from Czechoslovakia. They came up here to buy a sawmill to provide lumber for their successful manufacturing business in San Francisco. As their timber fortunes waned, they planted various crops, including Pinot Noir grapes, the grapes typically used for champagne. By 1882, the brothers were producing 20 to 30,000 gallons of wine from their vineyards. Their wine was so popular that they decided to devote all of their energies to this enterprise. They wanted to make champagne, though. To help them, they hired a winemaker from Prague who knew the French methods. By the mid-1890s, the Korbel brothers were in the champagne business for good. Except for the interruption caused by Prohibition, Korbel hasn't stopped since. After a trip to the tasting room, a walk through the sun-splashed garden of the old Korbel home is a must. I could see the attraction of owning a vineyard. A few more miles up the road in Guerneville is the Armstrong Redwood State Park. This 805-acre grove of primeval redwoods is a reminder of what the area looked like when it was all covered by forest. Many of these trees are over 200 feet tall with diameters of 16 feet. They live from 500 to 1,000 years. Some survive more than 2,000 years. It's a calming experience to take a hike or drive among these majestic trees. As we motored out of Guerneville, we joined Route 116. This largely rural area is dotted with farms, ranches, and rolling hills. It's California at its best. We stopped before we hit the coast for a long look at the sweeping Russian River. The aging barns and open fields along this stretch of Highway 1 are a welcome contrast to the crowded beach towns of Southern California. This unspoiled coastline is one of the state's most scenic attractions. The wide sandy beaches below the craggy cliffs are perfect for beachcombing, tide pooling, and surf fishing. But the heavy surf, riptides, and a small number of lifeguards spread over the long coastline make swimming hazardous. Once again, we could have stayed here all day. This went on the must-come-back list, but the road was calling and it was time to hit it. Many sports car lovers covet these roads. We ran into a pack of auto riders testing the Panos sports cars. They'd stopped in Bodega Bay to have a look at the schoolhouse featured in Alfred Hitchcock's famous movie, The Birds. The area has a certain detachment from modern life, yet embraces it. An interesting blend of attitudes and architecture that's worth exploring. It was time to temporarily kiss the twisty roads along the coast goodbye. We headed toward the inland freeway so we could catch up with the Challenge Rally in Monterey. The next day, we were in the heart of the Monterey Peninsula, one of the most romantic spots on the California coast. Its often fog-shrouded waters have inspired writers like Robert Louis Stevenson, John Steinbeck, and Jack Kerouac, poets like Robinson Jeffers, and painters galore. Its sunny hills, lying just inland from the coast, have been a magnet for sports car enthusiasts for many years. These passionate aficionados helped to ignite the sports car craze in the U.S. in the 1950s. New generations keep discovering the joys of driving these curvy, well-paved roads. While it's easy to become complacent about an average bunch of sports cars on the road, this zooming pack of Ferraris was a head-turner wherever they went. We caught up with the rally just in time for lunch. How convenient. The cars and drivers looked no worse for the wear and tear of 3 days of hard driving. We wanted to see if they'd had as much fun as we had.
Having a great time.
Yeah.
Marvelous.
Far exceeded any expectations.
One of the best rides of our lives, actually. It was pretty amazing.
It was one of the best rides of our lives, too. A perfect combination. A great car and a great drive.